Hi, you guys, and welcome back to the podcast.
We are the Karwells.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Sarah, and we are, as you know, Airbnb interior designers and investors. Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Catch Up with the Karwells. Is this our final episode of 2023 or our first episode of 2024?
First episode of 2024.
Whoa, okay, so while we're recording this,
the new year starts on Monday.
Oh my gosh, I know. Wow, okay, so we're recording this at the tail end of December, thinking about the first week of January, and so you guys are going to get to listen to this as we've entered 2024. But this episode is going to be 100% around mine and Emily's goals for 2024. And we're just going to hop back and forth through these. Let me tell you what, we learned a lot in 2023, as we say about every year. But without further ado, let's get into it. Do you want to go first?
Sure. I think my goals, and obviously, like, for obvious reasons, my goals changed for 2024. But I think, like, I feel like I'm a completely different person than I was doing this same podcast last year. Like, it does not feel like I have the same vision for my future at all than when we were doing the 2023 goals, just because of, like, all of the things we did this year. So it's really funny to look at the goals and be like, wow, these are more, like, to the point. I feel, like, stronger about these ones than I did previously. So just saying that. It feels very, very different than last year.
Oh, I love that.
So my very, very first one, which is literally, we had a meeting previous to us recording this, trying to figure all this out, is delegating all of the busy work to either technology, VAs, PAs, whatever I can get off of my plate busy work wise is going to get off of my plate this year. That is, I'm done doing, like, the little tasks that I have to, like, stop my whole day to go respond to an email or something like that. It takes up so much more time than I think it's going to. And then I get to the end of the day and I'm like, what did I even get done today? Nothing. I was doing little tasks all day that I didn't need to be doing. So that is my number one for sure.
I'm so excited for that for you. I will not do that. So therefore it gets pushed on you. Like, operations and being tedious about literally anything is, like, you're right. It is draining no matter what way you look at it. And for me, it's like the most soul-sucking thing on the face of the earth. Like, it could be sending one email, and, like, just the thought of being required to send an email for something, I'm like, ew.
Mm-hmm.
Ew. But I'm so excited for that for you, because I totally agree. I think that, like, you and I have been solopreneurs for the last 4 years, and all the time we run into other colleagues in this space that are like, oh, you and your team, and we're like, it's a huge team we've got over here. Like, no, it's literally just the two of us handling 100% of everything.
Wearing a million different hats, even though we don't have to.
Yes, a million different hats, which there is some benefit to it. Like, don't get me wrong, I think that we've gone through those phases for a reason, but I think you and I both, like, a portion of outsourcing some of that was a financial issue, right? It's like Karwell's wasn't making enough money to have confidence that it was going to be something that we were going to scale or really stick with for a long time. Like, we just didn't know. And now I feel like we're so sure that we're building this thing, that we're kind of settling in and we're being like, okay, how do we now make this sustainable instead of scrappy? All right, so I love that, and I almost have one that kind of echoes that. So hold on, I might do these out of order that are, like, relevant to what you say first. No, none of that was it. Oh yeah, okay. So one of my goals was, that is very relevant to the one that you just said, is fine-tuning operations. For our listeners, Emily and I have been, as you guys know, we've been best friends for 20 plus years. We have worked together in so many capacities, and so we very naturally fell into our roles working alongside each other. But with that, and I know I've mentioned this on other podcasts in the past, with that comes us allowing, like, not pushing each other into things that we know the other is uncomfortable with. And the thing that I am uncomfortable with is ops. Like, anything that requires building out a system or developing some sort of schedule, or, like, putting, like, very, like, strong borders around certain things. it kills me. It stresses me out. It gives me the ick.
Gives you the ick.
uh,
Okay,
and at the end
Gen
of the
Z.
day, yeah, it's just the thing that holds me back the most, right? It's like when somebody else develops a system for me, I have no problem falling into it. It's just me developing the system or like being like involved in the brain space of figuring out how to systemize something. Like I just don't feel like I work that way. And
You're
so
so
my
good
goal.
at it though. That's the thing. Like when you actually stop and take the time to build like a system or some level of organization, you're so good at it. It's just like stopping to do that. You don't have the time or like the brain capacity to do it because you have so many other things going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels like the heaviest chore in the world. Like, you could ask me to like organize my email or handle an entire remodel project of a 4,000 square foot house, and I will think that the 4,000 square foot house remodel is easier than organizing my email.
Yeah. I would argue
So,
sometimes that you're more organized than I am. I just like organization more than you do.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I'm feeling the pain of that this year of just like avoiding it because I don't like it, and that being the reason why I can't scale. It's like I'm standing in my own way in that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think the more we grow or we think about growing and scaling and bringing other people on, the more important it is. It's like I like will not be organized with you because I am comfortable saying sorry to you and being messy around you, but the second we bring somebody else in, all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh, like we really have to be a boss." Like I don't feel shame being bad at my job in front of you, like I feel shame being bad at my job in front of other people. And so now that other people are involved, I'm like, "Okay, there has to be a process. I have to abide by it. Like Emily and I have to put our heads together here and let's just develop the thing." So I think that this year is in my head less about growth and more about building that solid foundation so that we can grow.
I feel kind of the same way. I think that's a lot of like what my goals are that I'll be listing out here. Is like
Beautiful. Okay.
it feels like we did a lot of growing last year, and obviously the growth isn't going to stop. But now we have to figure out how to do things.
How to do the things without being crazy.
Yeah.
I love that.
Okay. So my next one actually has to do with the thing that we're filming right now. Find a better direction for Catch Up with the Carwells. It feels like, and I say this, I think I've said this on the podcast, but I say this to people all the time. I think we have the most dysfunctional, unorganized podcast in the world. And I find it fun still, but I just feel like there's like a better way to do what we're doing. And we just haven't figured it out yet. And we like the community that the podcast has brought to us, so we don't want to stop doing the podcast. So I'm just trying to figure out like what it looks like to still have it, still build the community that comes with it, while also like, I don't know, organizing it in like a sustainable way.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know it's like when we go to in-person events and we're like, "Yeah, we have a podcast too," and they're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're not super systematic about it." But I think it goes back to really speaking to the fact that you're right. You and I do enjoy showing up online and expanding our community, and so it like this podcast does come from a place of like pure like selfish enjoyment to a certain extent. And I think it's opened up a lot of doors for us, even if we haven't pushed it a ton on socials or haven't like tried to monetize it or really like been intentional about growing it. But you're right, it's like now we're responsible for so much, and some of those things make money and some of those things don't. And so the things that don't make money, you really have to justify spending time on. And if you do want to spend time on them, then like what purpose are they serving in your business? So I totally agree with that one as well. It's like we are no longer in an era of just doing things for the sake of doing things. We've got enough of that. So how do we turn this into something that's not only like scratching that itch for us, but also like makes sense for our business?
Yep.
Beautiful. Okay, my next goal. Let's see, which one do I want to do next? One of my goals this year is to lean into doing more research before leaping and simultaneously letting go of shiny red ball syndrome.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I
Not
know.
completely. It's such a good trait to have.
What, shiny red ball syndrome?
Yeah, I think that like it has benefited you so many times. I think that there's just like a way to do it.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I agree. Like, there has to be some like experimenting that happens as entrepreneurs and as the market shifts and yada yada. Like, you've got to throw noodles against a wall and see what sticks. But we have things that are sticking, right? We have things that do have traction behind them. And so I just want to be conscious of the fact that I get really excited about new things, and I don't want the new things to be at the sacrifice of the old things that I also love. Like, I know that you and I now are committed to, like, the mentorship, for example. We're so set on keeping that, right? Because we loved it. It worked well. It paid the bills. It helped other people. Like, it just had so many like boxes that it checked for us, that I want to make sure that my brain stays focused on like, how do we refine this? How do we make this better? As opposed to being like, okay, well, that worked. Let's add something else onto the plate. Which I'm not saying we won't add new things onto the plate. It's just that I internally have to always check myself and be like, okay, is this shiny red ball syndrome, or does this work well with what we're existing, or is this going to like result in me sacrificing time that I should be spending on the thing that is working? So I think now I'm just like, at first when we were new entrepreneurs, it was like test as many things as possible and just like hope that something like, starts rolling. And now we've got some things that are rolling, and I'm like, okay, we get to like settle in now and like try and build out this thing that is working, or the things that are working, and like say no to other things and be confident in saying no, even if they are good opportunities. Like, just nah.
Yeah. And I mean, the things can be no for now. And I think that
Yeah.
that's a thing that we haven't really thought about over the past few years is like what we've accomplished in 4 years is crazy to me already. And so the thought that we have to do every single new opportunity right this very second because it's not going to come up later is crazy. Like, oh, we have a baby business. And so these opportunities can come later once we found a thing that works. So let's build that out and then do that thing at a later period of time. But it doesn't saying no to some things for now. Some things are just going to have to be a no. Like, that's just the reality. But some of them are just going to be no for now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so right. Yeah. So learning to say no now. And then maybe we'll open the shiny red ball box next year. But this year it's staying closed.
Just for 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay, my next one is more of a personal goal. Well, it's kind of a personal goal. Learn how to manage being a mom and an entrepreneur. I think that's going to be like the biggest struggle of my entire year. And I get to kind of start it at the very beginning of the year. And so the progression, I'm going to get to be like, okay, so January 1. And I mean, I didn't stop working. So there's no like actual start date, but like let's say January 1, this is what my day looked like. And then at the end of the year, I'll be able to look back and be like, okay, you figured it out. You like learned all of these things on how to function as a mom and an entrepreneur. And so many people do it. I just have to figure out how to do it for me and my child. And so I think that that's going to be like one of the biggest parts of my year.
Yeah, it's going to be a heavy adjustment for sure. For our listeners, Emily and I have another best friend. Her name's Dale, and she just had a baby a year and a half ago ish. Yeah. And she was the first one in our friend group to have a baby, and so she kind of like went through those waters alone, with none of us understanding what it's like to be a new mom, or to be a good friend to a new mom, or to be conscious of things for a new mom. Like, just none of it. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are listening to this and being like, oh yeah, I had that one friend that like was the first or whatever. But I was having breakfast with her this morning, and she's just like so adamant about like keeping up with you and I, and how our relationship is going with you now having a baby. And so this morning I was just telling her, I'm like, Emily and I we have to be intentional about communicating about it, right? And I'm going to check in with Emily, or you're checking in with Emily, so on and so forth. And she's like, yeah, but Emily will never tell you if she's drowning. And I'm like, I will have a conversation with Emily about telling me when she's drowning, because I also am not the most observant person in the world. I get all wrapped up in my own drama. And if somebody doesn't say, like, hey, I'm over here, like, literally inhaling water, come
Mhm.
save me. Like, that's my concern with you and a baby, because I'll just, go, go, go. And so I was like, okay, so that's actually on my goals. To back up, your goal is to not avoid hard conversations. That is not specific to you directly, but conversations between the two. Like, we run a business together. There are hard conversations that we have to have. And now, like, in the past, you and I have always sacrificed our personal life for our business over the last 4 years because we wanted it to grow so badly and we were so passionate about it. And not that we aren't now, but I think that we're more confident in what we've built now, that now we have the flexibility to have brain space for our personal lives again. And you, like, whether you were expecting a baby or not, like, we should be shifting back into paying attention to our personal lives anyway, because you can't ignore your personal life for forever. And I'm an advocate for seasons of just like complete no balance whatsoever. Like, that's what we've been in. But I know that I tend to avoid hard conversations in general. And between the two of us, there will be lots of hard conversations where you're going to have to be like, Sarah, I cannot work these crazy hours that I, in the past, have worked happily,
Wow.
you know?
Yeah, I was talking to Dale about that, and it's funny that you bring up that she was the first one, and like not knowing how to be a friend to a new mom, because now I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't check in on her nearly enough, because
Yeah.
there's so much that comes with being a new mom, and in your head, if you've never had it happen, and this is probably the most annoying thing to hear if you have never had it happen, but you just don't know until it like is
Right.
happening to you. And so now I feel like I'm like, oh my gosh, I needed to check in on her more. And she's constantly checking in on me. And she's like, Sarah knows that you need a break. Sarah knows this. Like, don't worry. I'm like on it. And I'm like, that's great, Dale. We also like, we do need to have those conversations. And one of my goals on here is saying no to things that don't align with like what I need. And I think that's why this year for me, it is more of a restructuring year, maybe not like a new growth year, but like a figure out what we have going on year. Because on top of this, building something entirely new sounds good in theory, but like the actual like action of that probably is not going to be a thing, because it's the first year of your child's life is like so intense and he needs me all the time. Like, he's in my arms right now.
Right.
So I think that that's important. And yeah, the harder conversations, because like I know the pace that you like to work at, so I just try to work at that pace, right? And now I can't, and I have to be able to tell you, sorry, no, like I don't get to do that. And the thing is, if we have those conversations, it's fine. We just never do, because we're like both trying to build this whole thing. But this year we get to start being real adults.
Yeah. I'm so excited for it too. Yeah, I mean, we have carried every single hat in our business for the last 4 years. Like, and that's impressive by itself, but that's also like miserable by
And
itself,
irresponsible.
like, yeah, like nobody, like when you become an owner of a business, that's not what you imagine your role or responsibility being. And it does have to be that for a while, but I think now you and I are at a point where we're like, we've had our heads so in the sand. This year we finally made a livable income for the two of us off of Karwell's alone, and that's now allowing us to think about outsourcing a lot. And in theory, like, our roles really should be moving the business forward, not working in the business every single day. And I think that like, saying that and then actually bringing that to fruition are obviously two very different things. So, and you and I have never automated a business before, right? And not automated, but we've never set up like operational systems to handle a lot of the day-to-day tasks that we do. And so, like, one, I don't think you and I have a really good grasp on how long that's going to take. And then two, I don't think we have a very good grasp on how much time that's going to free up for us. And then three, with that new free time, like, we don't know how we're going to spend it yet. And like, at that point, sky's the limit, right? It may be work related. It may not be work related at all. Like, it might just give us a normal work-life balance, or we could, reach a point where we're like, whoa, we're like twiddling our thumbs 4 out of 5 days out of the week. Like, what else do we want to do? But either way, I think like sky's the limit for what this year could hold for us when it comes to operations and saying no and putting some boundaries and like really forcing ourselves into that like co-owner role as opposed to being co-owner and all of the employees and HR and payroll, like
Tech
all the
support.
things, you know? Yeah.
I'm tech support like
Yeah.
90% of the time, and I'm like, why am I don't know anything about this. I'm reaching out to tech support. Like, what?
I don't know anything about marketing and sales either, but like here we are. I don't
here
know.
we are.
Okay, is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay, so well, your one kind of led right into my next one. My next one is settle in and find balance. And I'm not saying it's gonna look normal by any stretch of the imagination, because I tend to be like really obviously fight against routine and schedules and everything that would like allow me to like structure and balance in my life. But I think that I'm finally detoxed from 9 to 5 life where I don't feel guilt about not working 8 o'clock to 5 p.m. And so all of a sudden now I'm like, wait a minute, it's fine if my work schedule is noon to 6 and I don't work Fridays. Like, it's totally fine if I wake up at 8 a.m. and I'm not to the gym until 9 a.m. Like, I can be a successful entrepreneur without waking up at 4 a.m. and going to sleep at 3 a.m., you know? So I think that that's a big goal of mine is, and I don't even like, that's such a broad goal. Like when I wrote it down, I'm like, okay, well, how does this like actually apply to my life? And I think that some of those things are just like naturally finding themselves in my life. Like I like that I can make my schedule around my new mom friends, like how Dale only works out at 9:15 because that's the time that Ledger gets up and yada yada. And so now I have the flexibility to go and work out with her and like get gym time in at the same time that I'm getting a little bit of social time with my friends. So I think that's really what I mean by that is just like I have more confidence that we built something that's sustainable now. I don't feel like we are like just behind this like big ball just trying to get it rolling. Like I feel like it's rolling, and so now I can like internally just relax a little bit and be like, okay, like in Argentina, I created those 2 posts for Turno, and then I like, we're done here. I'm not getting on social media and I'm not going to feel bad about it. And the last few days I've been like, okay, like extreme guilt around not posting. And I'm like, Sarah, you've built it. Your fault. Like the community is not going anywhere if you go away for 10 days. Like it's okay. Like it's okay to just be settled in your role and have confidence in what you've built. So I'm just trying to get out of that like desperation to make it successful mindset and get into it is successful. How do we make it more successful, work for us, sustainable, all the things, and just feel at ease about it.
Yeah, I like that too, because like I feel like I went through this thing where I was thinking about like the meetings that we had today, and I was like, okay, we have a meeting at 1, and then we want to film a podcast, and then we have to have a meeting, and I was like, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can function that way, and I was like, why do we have to? I was like, if we need to have a break between the meetings, let's just have a break between the meetings. Like, it's not that big of a deal. We're only answering to ourselves at this point, and so like, why not have that more balanced? And it was like a guilt thing for me too. Like I didn't have like a traditional 9 to 5 necessarily previous to this, but like it's just a guilt thing of like, oh my gosh, somebody's going to be waiting on it. No, it's just me who's waiting on it.
I appreciate and hate that about us. We're like such tryhards at our core. We like just have like each other up here on these pedestals, like such high standards. But like I was talking about that with Maddie in Argentina. She was like, I need to get home. Like, man, we're just like, we're behind on work now. Like I didn't get something out yesterday that I needed to, and that puts us a full day behind on the schedule. And I was like, who created the schedule? And she's like, me. I was like, who's holding you to that schedule? She's like, me. I'm like, who else is like, has any accountability around this schedule? Like, is anyone going to be upset if it's a day later on the back end? She's like, no. Like,
then Maddie, why are you stressing out so much?
It resonates so hard. It makes no sense, but it like genuinely affects my day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why? So stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good, but it is stupid. So
it's like
we're
a
letting
good
it go.
quality to have, I think, but I think we like take things to certain extremes. Like I feel like I say that a lot. I'm like, no, it's a good quality to have, but like, why does it have to be that extreme? It doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And stress is not good for our brains, our skin, our bodies, our gut, nothing. Like stress is Like, I want to feel confident in handling stress, but I do not want to carry unnecessary stress. Like, at the end of the day, we're all floating around on a big rock in the middle of the universe. Like,
Yeah.
like whoever's not getting their deal analysis fast enough or whatever. Like,
The world's not going to
please.
come crumbling down.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it my turn or your turn?
I think mine. I think I piggybacked on yours.
Okay.
This is a new thing that I want to at least start exploring what it looks like this year. I don't think it's like it might be, but I don't think it's a thing that will actually launch this year. But I want to start the process of creating a physical Karwell product. Like, I don't know what that looks like yet, and I don't even know the logistics of it. That's why I think that it won't be launched this year, because the logistics, I think, depending on what we choose to do, are going to take longer than what we think. But if my other goals of like delegating all of this stuff happens, I then get to redirect my attention into something like this. And so I just want to start looking at what that looks like. I think I said on the last episode, people have kind of been asking for stuff like that. And so if I can make the time to do that, and it's something that I know that I enjoy anyways, like, why not start dedicating my time to that?
Yes, that was not on my list. I was hoping it was on your list because I cannot wait for that era of Karwell. So Kylie Kadich, obviously we're obsessed with her. She released those construction girl hats or girl construction hats. She sold out of all 3 options of those hats in 23 seconds.
That's not even remotely surprising. I don't even love like mom merch gear, like things that say mama or mother or whatever else, and I want one.
I'm like, I don't want to be a mother, but I want one of those.
Literally. But I want it because it's her.
Yeah.
Her entire brand, like, I'm sucked into that.
Same. Maddie's told you that the interior designer that they hire in New York is the one who designed Kylie's, but yeah.
It makes sense. The style is so similar.
Yeah, it's so similar. But yes, she is king
She's
of
my
Instagram,
Taylor
in my
Swift.
opinion. Yeah, literally. It's so true. Yeah, she really is. She's so cute. She's so talented. She's just, I could go on forever. But
adorable.
Her child is adorable. Her style is adorable. Her audios when she describes how she's putting these units together or these like projects together is adorable. Like, everything about her is perfect. But with that being said, I just think it speaks to, like, we don't know her at all, right? Just like people that follow us who are like, oh my gosh, they're so down. Like the other day when Dale was like, oh yeah, I met one of your followers on social media, and she was like, they're so down to earth, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I appreciate it, but like, it's crazy how much of a relationship that you can develop with someone on social media that you've never met before, and how people have developed relationships with us that we have never met before. And how that like really drives your consumer behavior. Like, I want one of her hats so bad. And so I would love to have that kind of a relationship with our community as well. And I just think Karwell in general is like a cool word. I think it looks good on things. Yeah. I think KW looks good. Like, everything about it, I'm so emotionally attached to it. So I think like creating a physical product that is an extension of Karwell,
yeah,
I'm so excited. I'm like selfishly ready to
love
like
that kind of stuff. Like, I'm literally wearing a hat that got sent to me sent to us. We each got one from somebody whose podcast we did, Bethany. And I literally messaged, and I was like, I posted it, and she messaged, she was like, it's such your vibe. And I was like, I like wear it all the time. And I wear Carrie's hat all the time because I love it so much. And so I just want like other people to wear Karwell stuff and be like, oh my gosh, I love it so much.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it'll just open up a whole other side of things for us. Like, we're very passionate about properties, obviously, and we're passionate about community, but I know that you and I could be easily very passionate about clothing, planners, books, journals, like whatever we decide to like produce, mugs, dishware, sheets. Like, honestly, the sky is the limit on product. But ultimately, I think that product has more potential to make more cash than anything else.
It's just a bigger upfront investment. Inventory is a huge liability to carry.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. But if we did like small launches, like Kylie's hats or whatever, it's
Or
like,
we could follow Santa Detroit is one of my favorite brands in the entire world. I want a meeting with Michael Santa so bad. He does exclusivity drops and he makes them after they're ordered. So the time between when somebody orders and gets the product is long. Like I've
yeah,
ordered so many things from them, but the quality is so high that I don't even care that it takes that long. The designs are so cool that every single drop I want to buy something.
yes.
And so I
Yeah,
love the idea of things like that. And obviously, like our entire concept is around quality. So we're not going to start releasing something that's not a high quality product. And that's another reason why I think it's going to take longer is like, I'm not going to half ass it if I'm doing it.
yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. I'm so excited for that era though, because it didn't make sense to really pursue something like that until we had a large enough audience who resonated with our story to do that. And so now to even have that option, it's like that's a viable option where we really could have some traction on it just from what we built on socials. So, yeah, I think that that's a good, yeah, I definitely want to start working on that this year. And whether it's a release that happens this year or next year, like we know for certain, above all else, that our goal to grow on social media is top tier, right? Like that's where all of our business stems from is our presence on social media. So whether it's this year or next year, like in theory, the community will be bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I agree. That's a beautiful one. My one to piggyback off of that one is I want, and this is a very tangible, specific goal. It's my only, no, I have one other specific, no, two other specific goals. Is this year for Carwell, we almost passed 500K. I'm not going to claim that we passed 500K because we're restructuring the mastermind and the price of that mastermind, but we almost surpassed 500K in sales this year. Just off of Carwell's alone, that's obviously not including the properties and what they made. So I guess if you want to include the properties, Carwell's was probably, I don't know, well over 500,000. But my goal with Carwell's next year is to clear 750.
Mm-hmm.
I had the goal of 1 million written down, and then I kind of revised that because I really want it to be tangible, and I don't want to get stuck on a number that forces me to focus more on growth than on operations. But I want to do the exact same thing that we did this year with the mentorship. But in addition to that, I want, and this, okay, well, I'm going to do two goals right back to back here. My last goal was more in real life moments. So you and I have talked at length, and we already have some things in the works on how we're going to bring our community more in person. I know that you and I have been very adamant about not wanting to go the conference route, mostly because we found so much value in the intimate settings at these graduations. Like, worst, like the thing that I think is most unattractive to Emily and I is when we go to these conferences, we see people that we admire, that we socialize with on social media day in and day out, who have also followings on social media, and that person will stand there and there will be a line behind them and everybody's just like waiting in line to have a handshake with this person.
Yeah. It's very
And although
so.
maybe that's enough for the people attending the conference, like personally, selfishly for me, I'm like, I don't want to be a show pony. Like I don't want to like just stand there and shake your hand and not have a moment to like go like have any amount of depth with you. And I feel so impacted by our mentees and meeting them in person, and I feel like it's had such a positive impact on your and my life that I just want more of that, and it's much less about attention and way more about community.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I want more in person, in real life events this year that result in Carwell's making over $750,000.
Well, I literally have foster more in-person connections on my list. That is
Amazing.
not a like major strong suit of mine. I'm much more quiet than you are, which is why I think the like more intimate events are better for me. Like I have such a good time talking to the people at our graduations, but when we go to these conferences, I catch myself standing behind you and not wanting to talk to anybody because it just doesn't feel like me. And so I want to do that. I want to work on fostering more in-person connections. And then this one goes along with it too. So I'll do two in a row is grow the space and the space between communities. Just like overall, I want those to continue to build. I think that was a really good thing that we did this year that I want to prioritize next year.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how, like, you and I have spent so much time dabbling in so many other avenues, and the thing that honestly took, well, I guess you could say it took up the bulk of this year, but the thing that felt the lightest this year was the mentorship. Like, I never felt like overwhelmed or like doomsday about it. I never lost sleep over it. Like, I have lost sleep over raising capital and putting properties together and making sure that people are in these properties and yada yada. Like, real estate is like a big monster, but helping other people do what we do was just, it was so, like, it just felt so aligned. And so this year I'm like, man, if we could make good money doing that, help so many people doing that, like offer so much value in that, both in both directions, right? Value for us, value for them. Like, I just want to grow that. We love travel. We love having a good time. We've got people in our corner that are fun to be around. Like, we've got some synergy internally that just, I want other people to experience. Like, I don't know. I am totally aligned with you on wanting to foster more in-person connections, because that really was the magic this year.
Yeah, it really was. It felt so good. And like all of those things, like the more intimate settings, came after we went to Nashville. And not that Nashville wasn't fun, and like I did feel connected to people and we met some really cool people at the conference. It was just I was able to directly compare the two because we went to them so like close together. We had them so close together, and it's by far, there's no question which one I thrive more in and feel much more connected to people in.
Yeah. Yeah. Those small intimate settings. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were given more ideas, right? It's like, even for the speakers that go to these conferences, it's like they're there to give value, but there's not a lot of value for them to receive because they're in line having their hand shook a million times. Like, for us, I felt like I was walking away with truly helping people move the needle, and then I was also walking away filled with ideas that other people are experiencing or already have experienced for myself. Like, all the way around, it was just magic in that room. So more of that in 2024 for sure.
Agreed.
Okay, so we have 3 left, right?
I have 2 more.
Oh, okay, well, I have 3 more. Okay, so last professional one, and then the next 2, well, one is not professional. So one of my professional ones left, that isn't like super tangible, and I've said this several times before, is disagree without being disagreeable. That is my mantra for 2024. It goes in line with like not avoiding the hard conversation. And I was talking to my parents about this at Christmas. I was like, the one downside to you guys, like never seeing you guys fight a single time in my childhood, is that now whenever I experience any sort of controversy or conflict at all, I'm immediately like, that person hates me. Like, we can't get through this. Like, I might as well just avoid it because they hate me now and we don't align 100% on literally everything. So let's just like be done with it. That's insane. We're letting go of that philosophy. And I think, it's just like such a new concept for me, that like we can disagree without being disagreeable, and the psychology that goes into that. So it could be with other colleagues, it could be with mentees, it could be with guests in the B&B, it could be with my friends and family. It doesn't matter what it is. My goal is just, anytime I feel my body light up red, I always use that terminology when I can tell something's off, something's upsetting me, something's not right. I don't necessarily always understand why I feel that way in the moment, but I am one to vocalize that I'm feeling that way immediately. And so my goal is to just be able to like take a deep breath, be like, okay, my emotion does not determine my reaction. Let's feel this for a minute, and then let's strategically respond to it. And like take the emotional side out of it and just be like, okay, we're not agreeing, but that doesn't mean that there isn't synergy here. That doesn't mean that this isn't, reconcilable. How do I say that? Reconcilable?
I think you said it
right. And so yeah, that's my number one. It took me forever to get to it on this list, but that is my number one goal this year. I also, like, for our listeners, I'm sure you can assume this based on mine and Emily's conversation, or just based on our personalities, but I tend to be the one that anytime there is conflict, like I'm going to be the one to resolve it as far as like front facing, like directly handling whatever issue we're experiencing. So I'm going to be the one sending the aggressive email, or like I'm going to be the one like leading the hard conversation. And I get big anxiety around that. But nonetheless, it's like one of those things that I know is such a skill that's going to be valuable across the board forever, right? Like, regardless of what role we hold in our business, as our business grows, negotiations and being able to communicate effectively is always going to be something that we need to be good at. And so this year, I'm just like, I think I assume that everybody else is going to have as much grace for me as I have for myself, and they're going to be like, "Oh, she's like kind of a hot mess," and like we'll excuse her because she had a hard day, or like whatever the case may be. I'll be like, "Oh, I'm sure they're just going to be patient with me," and like although like I then want to extend that patience to other people, that is like not the reality of what people are necessarily giving us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to go into conversations sure of what I want, not willing to negotiate on what I don't want to negotiate on, and also not leaving the conversation with enemies or like any bad blood in the water. I just want to get really good at like effectively communicating and getting what I want or what we want in situations without being emotionally distraught.
Yeah. I feel like we're both on very opposite ends of the spectrum with that. And so it's not on my list, but like I feel like we could meet in the middle with that. Like I completely avoid the disagreements or any hard conversations. And if I get into them, it ruins my whole day. I panic. I don't like conflict at all. And so I think that like we like you're up here and I'm down here and we could just meet in the middle on stuff like that. So you're not the one who has to like take on all those conversations, but I also don't have to like panic just because I'm in them.
Yeah. 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 Because I mean, you always offer me great perspective. Like, you have a really beautiful way of putting yourself in other people's shoes that I do not have. Like, I just am like, well, this is the logical solution. Why would anyone else think any differently? And I'm like floored when other people would think differently. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how could you see this any other way besides the exact way that I see it?
Mm-hmm.
And for you, you're like playing devil's advocate all the time. You're like, well, they could see it 18 different ways from what you see it, and I'm nervous about them seeing it one of the 17 ways that you don't. And so we're coming at it from totally opposite ends of the spectrum, right? I'm like shocked that they disagree, and you're like, well, of course, why didn't we have a response ready? So yes, I think that anytime we're having, which I mean, you and I are pretty good about having conversations internally before we like go into tough conversations. But yeah, I think that there's a psychology behind it of sales, and like I don't even want to, it's like manipulation in a way, I suppose, but I feel like that's not the right word to use for like handling conversations delicately. And I want that skill in myself to improve. So it sounds like a reading list that I need, maybe a coach, maybe a mentor just to walk me through conflict and sales.
Maybe. Okay, yeah, I have 2 left. I want to invest in a property just Tyler and I this year. Like my family has talked about maybe wanting to invest, so we'll explore potentially that option. But I want another property that's just Tyler and I. I kind of want to try out a different market of people. I want it to be smaller groups. So I literally am scouring Zillow right now, and the thought of buying a property, like it's not happening until like mid-year or maybe Q3 in reality. But I'm just right now like going through Zillow, getting an idea of what I'm looking for, the traits of a property that I want, just to get that ball rolling. And try out like a new loan option, a DSCR loan instead of the primary home loan that we did before. That's like a whole new beast for me. And so understanding what that looks like money wise, that's a significantly higher upfront investment. So that is a big goal of mine this year. And I just know that like I'm starting the process now to get myself mentally prepared for it.
Yeah, that's a really nice segue into my next one. I have a goal of 2 properties this year, personally owned. That feels a little lofty. Because for our listeners, I'm sure you're aware, our Like if we put 20% down on any of these lake houses, we are spending 150 grand on the house no matter what. No matter what, there's no way around it. We've done it now time and time again. Like that is the price point of like not bare minimum, but like good design, hot tub, like no game room sort of a situation. And so if we want to do 2 of those houses this year with those DSCR loans, that's $300,000 going into properties. And I don't know that that's possible. The only reason that feels a little bit more possible is I know Ethan's willing to sell the bus and the van, which would put an extra 70 grand in our pocket. So, I mean, it's not 100 grand, but it is 70 grand extra. Yeah, that's the down payment, right? On a $300,000 house at 20% down. So I think it's like 75 grand is what it is with closing costs and things like that. But anyway, yeah, and that might bleed into like us buying a house in like November of this year and not finishing it until the beginning of 2025. But I go back and forth all the time about whether I want to raise private capital or if I want to just continue like putting everything we've got into the Karwell mentorship and community and education and, you know, all of the things that went right this year and kind of building that out and not using investor capital and just investing in our own properties, which I guess we could do both, but that's a tightrope that gets pulled in my head daily. But I want 2 properties next year because if we had 2 properties and we would have 4 properties that we own 100% of on our own, and ultimately like the goal would be 10 properties that we solo own, and then we could like wash our hands of it, like be done.
Nice. Yeah, I don't even know anymore what my end goal is for properties self-owned, but I'm like fine growing at a slower pace.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Because like what's the rush? We're not even 30 yet.
We're very quickly creeping up on 30. We got 6 months.
We do have 6 months.
I'm so excited, actually. I'm really excited to turn 30.
I'm so excited to turn 32. I feel like 30 to 40 is going to be our best 10 years.
Oh, absolutely. Like with how 2023 was, 2023 was a great year, even though like being pregnant sucked because I was sick, but the year itself was great.
Yeah.
And it ended pretty good.
Yeah, it did end well. Okay, what's your last goal?
Stay organized throughout the whole year so I'm not scrambling in the last few months. I want the last few months, obviously, like I'm planning on buying or hoping to buy a property in Q3, but like ideally November and December get to be chill months for me. Like the holiday season, I get to spend time with family. It'll be the first holiday season that he'll be like aware of. And I just want it to be relaxing. And I spent my pregnancy postpartum with him on my chest, like organizing my financials.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to be next year. So, and I can be better about that. I'm a pretty organized person, but like I can be much better about doing it consistently throughout the year instead of doing it in like spurts, like quarterly.
Yes, that was not on my list, but that is also like from a finance perspective alone when it comes to numbers. Like I reached out to Jackie, our bookkeeper, the other day, and I was like, I'm happy to pay you an extra hour every single month if it means that I have a standing meeting. Me and Ethan have a standing meeting so we can go over our personal expenses because Caleb handles Gravel Road, Matt handles Orange Cadillac, but when it comes to Ethan and mine, and you handle Karwell's, and so when it comes to Ethan and mine, like it is just a disaster. It's not necessarily a disaster, it's just like if we got audited, like it would take me, like I don't have it nicely foldered with every single receipt to just hand over to an auditor and be like, leave me alone. Like I would have to go through and like re-find all of the receipts for all of the things that we've purchased. And so that's why I canceled, or a big reason why I canceled Florida for the month of January, because I'm like January 1 through 9, like the first week, we're obviously launching the mentorship, but outside of that, like my only goal for that first week is to make sure that every single thing is ready to go for the year's expenses. Like, we opened up new bank accounts, we've opened up new LLCs, we've restructured, we've hired asset protection teams to like make sure that everything's covered. And with that, like, I need to then go back into Airbnb and refill out 1099s. I need to go back into Airbnb and reroute all the bank accounts. I have to go through all of the utilities and reroute them to the right bank account. I have to now understand what comes out of my S corp versus my personal expenses. Like, I know the learning curve is steep, and I do not want to get to October and all of a sudden realize that it's a shitstorm.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. It's like such a heavy lift, but if you do it consistently, it's not that bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's get a meeting on our schedule for numbers as well. Like, we just need to have a day at the end of the month that we schedule nothing on, and we handle all of our numbers. Like, you handle your personal numbers, I handle my personal numbers, and then you and I also meet with Jackie and we just go through Karwell's numbers, because it literally will take 15 minutes. But the anxiety it gives us at the end of the year by not spending those 15 minutes 12 times a year is outrageous.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's outrageous. Okay, my last one is a personal one unrelated to all work things. And it's bringing back 2013 Sarah. I want to be in the gym or exercise 4 times a week. Period. No questions asked.
Ooh, okay.
I used to be so good about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so good. Like, it would be Sunday night at 8 p.m. and we would be in, our apartment on Leonard, and I'd be like, I have to go to the gym. Like, I didn't get my 4th workout in this week. Like, I have to go. And it was just like, it was because I didn't want to break my streak, right? Like, I had so many weeks of showing up at the gym 4 times a week, and on the days that I didn't want to show up, I would just like run for 20 minutes or whatever. But I feel guilt around how much time I've spent on work and how little time I've spent on my actual health. Like, I've been pretty good about watching what I eat and maintaining my weight and like drinking some water. But I have not been consistent about actually getting movement. And so I don't want my muscles and joints and everything to start deteriorating at 30, because we're almost 30, earlier than they need to. So I just, like, we have the luxury of creating our own schedule. Like, I want to mentally put my physical health above my business, because that is more important. So
yeah,
that's my last goal. 4 times a week.
I agree. I don't know what my schedule would look like, but it's like talking about the balance and figuring out like what our life looks like. And I was talking to Tyler about that, like how I'm going to balance work and him and still wanting to go to the gym, because like my body's not what it used to be, especially now. And I loved having the routine of going to the gym. And so even if it's like 30 minutes on a treadmill, as long as I go, I can make the effort to do that. And I don't know why we don't prioritize our physical health more than we prioritize this business.
Yeah. For 3 years. Yeah, we haven't done that.
Yeah. We need to.
I haven't done that for like 6 years, but the past 3 years especially, I've just been like, nah. Especially when I figured out that I could like maintain weight without working out. I really then was like, nah, but that's crazy. Like, that's not healthy either. So we are becoming strong girlies this year instead of heavily working girlies.
Falling into the wellness trap, but I kind of want to.
Yeah. But I kind of want that to play a role in my B&Bs too. Like, I think when I think about a boutique hotel, like the only way I think I'd get excited about a boutique hotel is if it was targeted towards the wellness community and like saunas and cold plunges and whatnot. So I want to be that girly. Maybe we'll incorporate some of that on our social media this year and take you on our wellness journey, and then our properties will all be wellness focused, and then we can have retreats that are around wellness instead of around absolute debauchery, which I also love.
I love debauchery too. I just don't know that I can do it anymore. That one glass of Prosecco that I had the other day nearly killed me.
I know. I feel that so hard. Yes. I love that. We're growing up, but also, with that being said, it's like our community on social media is also growing up with us. So they're probably going through that exact transition or have already gone through that exact transition. And so if we offered like retreats that were not binge drinking, but instead were like guided meditation and cold plunges and saunas and
sound baths.
Sound baths. I could get into sound baths. Maybe some goat yoga. I don't know. Like...
I would never say no to puppy yoga.
Oh, yeah, I like that better than goat yoga. I'm always afraid a goat's going to poop on me.
Well, the puppy's probably going to pee on you.
That's fine. That's way less offensive than a goat pooping on me. Don't ask me why. I'm not going to try and justify it, but that is so much better in my mind than goat poop.
Fair enough.
Look at us. Not bad goals.
Not bad.
Not bad goals.
And look at it.
Well, if you're listening to this, that was your sneak peek into our goals for 2024 / lessons learned in 2023. My last question for you, Em, as we wrap this up, is there anything that you want to leave behind in 2023?
Lack of confidence. I gained a lot of confidence in 2023, so I want to leave the lack of confidence there.
Yes. 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 I could go on a whole tangent about that. I have a video that's like in my living rent free in my head that's going to turn into a reel about confidence as well. Yes, 1000%. Please. Because I get so much of you that other people don't get that is just a pleasure.
Well, wait, have you said, I know you did this with everybody in Argentina, but what's yours?
Oh, what was mine? Mine, which was on this goal list. My thing that I'm leaving in 2023 is avoiding the hard conversations. I feel like one conversation in particular that I'm sure you're very aware of, with a colleague that I just haven't been able to have this entire year, and it's like weighed on me the entire year. And I think like a portion of me avoiding that conversation with this specific person is just because I'm not sure what I want out of the conversation. Like I don't have clarity on the outcome that I'm looking for. I'm just like mad. So I think that's part of the reason why I have avoided the conversation. But like I feel like I have emotionally carried it for a year. And I don't want to, like, that's so stupid when it comes to work stuff. Like I remember like my worst work days at Rogue when I was working at the architecture firm. It's like if I'd really screw something up on a set that we were sending out to the city, like it would ruin my day for that day because Samay would be mad at me and like, you know, whatever. But like I would get over it so fast. I'd be like, oh, my boss is mad at me for it, like whatever, I'm gonna see her tomorrow and it's just work. And like I was really able to compartmentalize it, and now it's so personal. And it feels so attached to who we are. Like it is a direct reflection of who we are that I just get so much more anxiety like navigating muddy waters. And I just don't want to do that. Like I want to get to a place where my brain sees Karwell as separate from Sarah and Emily, in that capacity. Like it always is going to be a reflection of us, but I want to be able to handle conversations that have to do with Karwell in a much more objective, like point blank way, as opposed to like so emotional.
Yeah. Well, look at that. My alarm just went off.
Well, we've carried this out for an hour. So, all right. Well, to our listeners, I'll wrap this puppy up. Thanks for listening to our first episode of 2024. This year we've got so much in store for you, so connect with us, reach out to us, slide into our DMs, comment on our videos, and just plug in with us because it is us on the other end. We have not outsourced any of that by any stretch of the imagination. And I hope that if you're listening to this inspired you when you are looking at your 2024. Hopefully some of these things resonated and you feel a little less crazy because of them, because we are experiencing all of these things as well. So we will nonetheless catch you on the flip side.
Bye.
Bye.